My name is Davidson, and I am here to tell you about virtual heritage. But a lot of you guys have already talked about virtual heritage, but not using that term, so I think I can pack up and go home. No, really, I wanted to say thank you. I know John and...
Just wait 1 second, Tim.
Thanks, mate.
Is that better?
Virtually good.
There's nothing helping your mum.
John and Bernadette already talked today a little bit about some of the things that I'm going to talk about. The 3D scanning, very exciting technology, and combining that with 3D visualization is a way that I see how the future and the past are going to mesh to create this really beautiful moment. So, what is virtual heritage? So, anyone recognise this?
That's my place.
Can I come to dinner?
Don't live there. Got some old food.
Bernie?
Right.
Well, that's not actually a photograph, that's a 3D image. And no, I don't know where it is either, because it was probably somewhere, some Roman city from a long time ago. I'd love to be able to say I did this. It's probably Rome. I'd love to be able to say that I did this one, but I didn't. But I just thought it was a beautiful introduction to virtual heritage. So, virtual heritage. We're a fast-paced digital society, and most people today are not thinking about the past, they're thinking about the future. They're thinking about where are we going? Where is technology going to take us? What are we going to see in the next few years coming out? What new technologies? How is Facebook going to evolve? Facebook actually just bought the Oculus Rift, so Facebook is evolving. But we often forget the past, and sadly, in forgetting the past, we sometimes lose track of our identity. As I mentioned before, I lived in a little country called Montenegro. It's in the Balkans, used to be part of former Yugoslavia. Now, in Montenegro, they're very good at remembering the past through song, through oral tradition, through stories. In fact, if you talk to people over there about a particular battle that occurred back in the 1200s, they can probably name somebody who fought in that battle. And they will not forget it. Sometimes, if you look back over the history of Europe, there's been many, many wars fought. It's because people have remembered their past, and they haven't forgotten the stories that have been passed down to them. But that's the negative side of not forgetting the past. The positive, beautiful side is that it forms our identity, it forms who we are. It's our stories. So recent developments in 3D visualization have allowed us to virtually take a look into the past, be it from a 3D illustration to an animation, to a virtual reality tour. There's new technology that even allows you to physically walk around and interact in virtual reality, and I'll talk about that later. But this new technology is allowing us to experience the past in ways that had never before been possible. So this experiential study of archaeology, of anthropology, of history and heritage is known as virtual heritage. And it can greatly assist us in interpreting the past through another dimension. Even when we capture videos or photography, it's hard to bring that all together to really get a full understanding of a person, let alone an entire culture. In traditional archaeology, and I'm not knocking traditional archaeology, I think what you guys do is great, but traditionally until recently, it hasn't been able to give us the element of depth, because traditionally we haven't been able to take into account things like art and dance and music, all of these elements that make a culture the culture that it is. So the technology driving virtual heritage, virtual reality and augmented reality. I'm going to focus on these two. There's a whole lot of other things. Other areas include what's called serious game development, so making video games of historical scenarios, 3D animations, 3D walkthroughs, all of that. But I'm going to focus on virtual reality and augmented reality. Now that one I do know is ignorant. What is virtual reality? Well, virtual reality is a product that that allows a user an entire experience. So, as Joni just saw before, it took him from this room to a street in New York where there was a firefight going between alien machines and the New York Police Department. And in a sense, you felt like you were there, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
The virtual environment is presented to the user in such a way that it gives them a sensual experience through their, at the moment it's 2 of the 5 senses. Some new products are allowing us to incorporate touch as well. One of the things my colleague and I are working on is a vest that you can wear that vibrates in certain areas.
Can I try that vest?
Let me rephrase that. It's a vest. That's a vest.
That's the quote of the day. You're inventing pants.
No pants. My 4-year-old son's in the room. So that like in a game experience, you know, if you're playing a game and you get hit by a bullet in the chest, you feel a sensation in your chest when that happens. What that can mean for heritage is that it would give you much more of an experience. So you're not just hearing, you know, when there's a dance going on, you won't just hear the music and see it, but you may feel the sense of like the actual sense of what's going on around you. So in virtual reality, you're usually able to it extends from just being able to see around you in a totally three-dimensional 360 degree, right through to being able to walk around. They've got machines now that are like treadmills that you can walk around and physically walk around your environment. I'll show you one in a minute that allows you to walk around the room and you can interact with objects and things like that. So the line between this reality and the digital reality, the further you get into it, it gets more and more blurred. But what that means for heritage is that I could be here in this room and then I could be participating in an Aboriginal corroboree and walking around and watching this happen from different angles. Virtual reality, as I said before, is primarily experienced through the 5 senses, through 2 of the 5 senses, but we're working on other areas that incorporate touch. I'll show this video here. This is another product. I've got the Oculus Rift, but we're also developing for the HTC Vive. It's just very hard to get hold of one of them. Yeah, it allows you to walk around the entire room. It's a good example of what virtual reality is.
Oh yeah.
Come on in. So we're going to show you some virtual reality today. You know, it's really hard to show people what it's like to be in virtual reality without having them try it for themselves. Filming you in the green screen studio is just the best way we found to help everyone else understand what it's like to be in VR. Any questions?
Can I go first?
All right, go crazy.
So this is what she's actually
Oh,
seeing.
you're so cute. Oh.
It makes you feel like you're pulling a string back.
Left, turn left.
Oh, yeah, shot.
Oh my goodness, these guys are so cool.
Look behind you, Kyra.
Oh no. It's a bird.
Eat those donuts, Jerry. Get them. Get those donuts.
I'm standing in the way of his mom. A little bit more toward us. There you go.
No, the other way, the other way. The wheels are a little off kilter.
Hold on. I'm gonna get really hungry down here. Little bit of a torque issue.
Right to the black hole.
Can we go into space? No, I can't. The grid's here.
The grid wall here, that's to stop you from walking into the couch, walking into the walls.
Oh, this is so cool. I can move all this stuff.
Look at this thing.
I gotta keep the beat. Oh, that was
God!
Can you see me? Yeah. Hold up some fingers. Let me see it. 5. Oh no! Oh my God! He's both in your hands, Kelly.
Oh. Have a little fire. Oh, it feels hot, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Alright, so before I go into augmented reality, I'm going to let somebody here in the audience that hasn't had a go at virtual reality come and have a go. Could I have a volunteer?
Well, I had a go.
Alright.
I'm a technophobe, so I like steam, things that run on steam, not steam.
How you gonna tell you?
Fast forwarding to an interesting spot.
That's a fast horse.
That's a Newcastle horse with a fast. That's what I know.
Flying cotton.
Far left. It's a pretty long tour otherwise. So.
I'm gonna stay up.
Okay, alright, come here now.
It's not the Appian Way, 30s.
Come just a little, come over here, just a little bit closer, so you're not pulling You're right. Now just look around you, 360 degrees.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
The horse likes pats too.
I'm a bit of a fan of Convict Newcastle, and Charles Martin is a genius at this stuff.
He really is.
Yeah, so I think that was the commissariat store.
Yeah,
I'm seeing there.
So what we've got a map to the side. What we're working on, we didn't manage to get it working for today. It was to be able to have it so you can switch between modern day Newcastle on the map and historical Newcastle, so you can see where you actually are.
Is this about 1817 or something?
Yeah,
that's
around
commissariat
that.
store. Wow.
Well, when,
And that's the hospital
yes.
up there. Where's the jail? Over there.
It's coming.
Oh well, so we're in Watt Street. This is Watt Street from the shaft up where the bowling green is now, bowling green shaft. And that's the watch house for the wharf.
You better watch your horse, you'll be in the drink.
Oh, well. And so this is the lumberyard.
Yeah, that's right. So
That is the lumberyard.
look to your left. There.
That's it. That's the stockade and lumberyard.
It's me.
Oh my word. That's crazy stuff.
That was history.
That's crazy. And that's the stockade with that clerestory, the roof monitor, the ventilator. Oh wow, that's ridiculous. And the first post office there. What became the first post office?
Look up in the sky. There's also the sun.
And that's that 2-story convict hospital. That 1.5 was brick knobbed by Morissette.
Yep.
Commandant Morissette.
Great history of Newcastle.
Oh, I just make it up as I go on.
How's it going?
He's the first visual ad
Can
libber.
I turn the? I can turn it.
The horse turned himself.
So it turns itself.
Yeah.
So where's the there's the jail.
That's the jail.
Oh,
yes,
that's
all
right.
those
That's
big
astonishing.
jails there.
And there's still shrubbery here before one of the idiot commandants came out to stop escaping convicts, and that caused the sand drift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the jail.
Now that is
He's
most
sending you to
impressive.
jail right
That
now.
is most impressive. They reckon Mrs. Macquarie had something to do. Well, I've sometimes thought it had something to do with the design of that jail.
Yeah, she brought all the plans over when she came. It's
Quite a nice looking jail.
Yes, except that it didn't, and it had a beautiful view, except it didn't have any windows in the back.
And there's
It's only for convicts. So.
the turnkey's house.
You can stay there.
Oh, yeah, that's astonishing.
And they're the dunnies down the back of it.
They could be.
We're still dumping sewer in the ocean. That's progress. Oh, wow. This is most impressive. I hope the commandant doesn't come past, or I'll have to draw up, doff my cap and say good morning, Your Honour. Good evening, Your Honour. And this isn't that so-called pagoda that was designed by Close, was it? Lieutenant Close?
Yes. We're going up to it now. Yes, that's the pagoda.
Yeah.
Because Close was government engineer here in about 1820, 25 or something. And that coal-fired brazier,
Yep.
because I think it was the light keeper's house for the brazier, keeping the light all night.
Put your horse in second gear.
It's, he came from what's now near Bangladesh, so he based it on the architecture for there. Oh gosh, I never thought I'd see that. The signal station staff, yeah. And there's even the breakwater staff.
That's the end of the tour.
The breakwater staff, there I and Nobby's in its more or less original shape,
Yeah.
I guess. Oh, most impressive. I can't believe it. It's crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
Geez, I wonder if can I go up to the first floor?
Off you go.
The tour's over. Couldn't have picked a better tour.
And we lost David in 1825 Newcastle, unfortunately.
I feel excited. I want to go back.
So, that all was virtual reality, and I really, I'll pay you afterwards. So we're going to talk about augmented reality. Who's heard of augmented reality before?
I've been married once.
Two people.
Oh, right.
Oh, hang on. Okay, augmented reality. This is a great example of augmented reality, and I was going to show you earlier. I brought my trusty Chromecast to plug into a HDMI port so that I can show you with my phone what augmented reality is. There's no HDMI port in there, so. Augmented reality is a type of technology that allows you to take your phone and look through your phone at a physical location or an image, or when we're talking about rock art, we've been talking about rock art all day, but when you were talking Bernadette about some of the locations, I was just thinking like augmented reality, that'd be perfect. You've got a photo on the wall of the rock art site, and then someone can see it in 3D when they look at it through their phone. Augmented reality is the process of superimposing digital information or images into real-world surroundings. It allows you to enhance your experience of the real world by adding additional information, videos, 3D models to your environment. Through using your phone, there's also augmented reality glasses that are coming out now that you can wear, so that when you're walking down, let's say Hunter Street, and you walk past a particular building, you could see when it was built, who was the architect. You can maybe watch a video about the architect. Unlike virtual reality, which you just saw, it's an entirely artificial environment. Augmented reality uses your actual surroundings. So if you're bush, let's say a bushwalker, I guess you probably don't want to point out to everyone where this rock art is. But if there was a particular site, someone could go to a location, stand at a marker, and hold their phone at the rock, and even if usually you couldn't see it because of the time of day, or you needed water to splash on it to make it clearer, you could hold your phone up and then you could see it come to life out of the actual rock. Recent developments have made this technology easily accessible. Every one of you has an augmented reality device in your pocket. Most smartphones will do it absolutely fine. Go onto Google Store or iOS Store and type in augmented reality, and you'll find heaps of products. So here's a little video of a museum this is someone's experience of the American Museum of Natural History through their phone using augmented reality. So this is what they're seeing on their phone. Okay, so group one, what was your question?
How do you think these technologies could be applied?
Okay.
And we took it generally, so just lump them all together. And essentially we're talking about site presentation within the joint areas of interpretation and education. So, and particularly with archaeological sites, being able to take people onto a site that they see now as, particularly if you're a teenager, a not very exciting pile of rocks. And then do the time team thing with it from the one brick to the full medieval castle.
Yeah.
That you can get more engagement that way, that you can present a much larger body of information than you can with brochures or signs, but also that you can present different types of information. You know, you can have the music of the period, you can have a commentary from an archaeologist or an elder or a local. So you're also starting to do that thing about, rather than having the one authoritative voice on the site, you actually have the variety of different views. And I think perhaps particularly where you have multi-layered sites, where you have sites with contested histories, being able to hear both sets of views or multiple views about the significance of the site's really important. That's where we got to. We didn't actually, we ran out of time to talk about more scientific applications.
Sure. Well, that was great. I mean,
A range of ideas, but I was thinking about having something like like with the colonial Newcastle virtual reality, to have maybe an Aboriginal Newcastle, the same sort of tour, looking at how Aboriginal people live just on a daily basis and seeing the place as it was. But then there was
Revitalise the Lycett paintings.
revitalise the Lycett paintings.
Live in the Lycett paintings.
But also, you know, you were talking about...
I got carried away and I went into medical science.
Medical science, being able to construct and do things and learn remotely a whole range of things that you need, the sort of, I guess, the qualities of 3D in order to do that.
Go in the collider or something like that.
Yep.
The application too for museums and galleries is
Yes.
just endless.
Yeah.
Well, we've
Dare
been
I
in
say,
Myanmar.
but I would, sorry, Ella, I just want to say one thing. But I would say for those destinations, I think you would want a quite different package that wasn't so populist in terms of what's available on games and so forth. I know we want to engage audiences, but I think we're talking about a different, not too serious necessarily, but something that is really tailored.
More interactive.
It's certainly interactive,
Yeah.
but certainly employing latest research and so forth, but engaging, but in a different way.
Yeah,
so
sure.
that it's encouraging more of an investigative approach.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Not just an experiential tour, but something that actually involves the user. Yeah, sure.
Well, just thinking about going into schools and that sort of thing with some sort of program, teaching them Indigenous heritage would be a valuable tool to have. As far as children these days see a lot of that sort of thing in their games and stuff on TV, so they're quite used to having that visual reality in their world. It's not like us, who it doesn't look really real to us, but to younger people it does. So as in hand painting on rocks and that sort of thing. Let them see visually how you do it, and then let them into the playground with a spray bottle with ochre liquid in it to be able to do it themselves. Also, with the tool that the fellow there has got, fishing, let them just sort of have that experience without having the actual spear in their hands. But let them feel the Indigenous people's tools and way of living, to bring them closer to the idea of what it was like for them.
So like you saw in that first video where they were actually pulling back their bows and arrows, you could have
a
something
spear,
like
a
that.
spear thing, throwing. And you know, the art of painting with the hand, and these days we could use a spray bottle in the playground to show them that sort of thing. I think that's because to kids these days that virtual reality is quite real.
Yes.
She was talking about how with kids that she's been teaching before, it is a lot harder to teach them now, especially nowadays, because they have gotten so used to seeing things in a virtual reality sense. So we thought even with participating in like hunter-gathering sort of things or ceremonies, like they will be able to experience those sort of things in a classroom altogether. Like if you can even build the experience around the whole classroom and then have interactive persons in it as well. Like it builds the meaning for them. So we were looking at that, and by creating this distance between the site but also presenting it to them through virtuality, it means that the sites don't become damaged in the process. So even with tourism, like we've seen in sites like Pompeii, the effect of tourists and people walking all over it and picking pieces off and even breathing on these artefacts is destroying them in the process. So if you can educate them in other ways without them actually going there, it's really beneficial.
You're at number 5.
Well, Doug thought of going along the green space, which is in Newcastle now, and seeing a virtual reality model of a train coming to the station. But that was really only a giveaway. We thought more in terms of situations like Nobby's, where you could look through the phone at where the kangaroo story was and then get the image of the kangaroo moving inside it and words to describe what was a Dreamtime story or images to describe it. So it's, as you say, augmenting reality.
But using it as a way of making those intangible heritage values of Indigenous people, which a lot of white society has a lot of trouble understanding. It could be a gateway into, telling that cultural story of a landscape that we're not very familiar with as a white society, but that's a really key part of the Indigenous experience.
Yeah. So Johnny, were you telling me a story about the Aboriginal people warning the early settlers about where not to settle because of particular dangerous locations?
Well, that was about Uranulli, when they were walking around Uranulli, which is South Newcastle. Threlkeld, there's a story Threlkeld recounts with Biriban. He told him to shut up as he was walking around it. And then when they got to the other side, he said, look, he said, why'd you tell me to shut up? And he said, well, because this is Uranulli, and Uranulli doesn't like people talking loudly, or else rocks will fall on your head. Right. So in 2004, I think it was, when Uranulli, that big boulder fell on the road and stayed there for 3 years, Glenn Albrecht, who was an environmental scholar here, wrote a little piece called Uranulli's Last Stand and retold this story. And it was incredible, because they later said to it, they later had the gall, the council wrote to us and said, oh, we would like to put a plaque up, do you have any photographs? And I said, well, what you've done, because what they did to Uranulli was claw the hell out of his side. And I said, well, what you've done is really beautifully explaining what we do to the natural world. The Aboriginal world would live with it and sort of respect it, whereas we said, no, we're not going to yet let Uranulli tell us what to do. We'll just claw her to death, or claw him to death, and just shear him away. I mean, it was really interesting. And so they put that, I mean, there's this stuff up on the dates of the story, but it was very interesting even when we got to look at the language, because the year sound in that word means to shear away from. It's related to initiation ceremonies, where a boy is made into a man and shears away from his mother. It's referring to shearing of rocks. It refers to all ideas of coming away, coming apart. So there's so much depth to this culture and how you understand it, and the natural world and you are all interconnected to it. It's really similar to how the Chinese have the Tao, the Taoism, which is a very natural sort of religious understanding and wisdom that most people interpret as divination in our world, but in their world it's putting you in harmony with the world you live in. So
getting in the next generation to understand that being Australian is about being connected to this land and to the people that have walked before us, and getting them familiar with the stories that have been told in this country for thousands of years. Just in wrapping up, through virtual heritage, we improved our ability to study cultural heritage sites and artifacts by interacting with them and experiencing experiencing previous societies and how society functioned around them. Virtual heritage also can be used to catalogue some of our nation's most valuable treasures. Like John was talking earlier, creating 3D models of these things, these artifacts before they fade away. This can ensure that people like my son Josh there in the back can enjoy these treasures for generations to come. Thank you very much.
I'm pleased to say that there's another packet of coconut roughies. Thank you very much. It was a great way to finish today. I loved your closing lines about the reconnecting with the land. If this augmented reality, virtual reality can help us connect, that answers a question that we got at the start of the day from Greg Blight. And I think, where is Josh? Where is your son?
Josh, you stand up.
Josh, he is a great treasure. He is a very great treasure. We value him. You look after him.
Josh, do you want to come and get the biggies?
Hey, Josh. Does he speak?
All the time.
You've got a great.
I'm trying to get started.
You've got a great lifetime ahead of you. Congratulations to there for home. Not for now. Okay, thank you very much. And well done. And I'll let it over to you, John.
yeah, I'm just going to want to thank Bernie for looking after today. I've just been greatly in awe of everyone that spoke today. I love the way it was all coordinated by Amir and Anne. It just flowed so well. I mean, I know it's been a long haul, and I really am sorry. There's 3 cakes left. There's 3 cakes left. Oh! God! There's a present for you, man. And yes, so it just, look, I've just been filled with such awe. It's really wonderful. I was very proud of. I was blown away. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you to the presenters. It was just wonderful catching up with Bernadette and all the scholars, Gillian. I could have kissed all the presenters a million times. It was just so wonderful to see Aboriginal heritage being spoken about in this fashion. Okay, that's the really important thing. I mean, I know it's difficult for Aboriginal communities out there at the moment, but I just think we need to run with this now and just make it happen, because it's not going to happen unless we come together and work it out. There's too many forces in this country driving us apart. Okay, every time we get into a group of people, everyone goes with a difference every single time. How am I different to you? And there's not enough. How do we come together? What are the similarities with us? What binds us together? So I'm hoping that we've seen everything today. I believe everyone at one point or another has been in the room that can help all this come together beautifully. I'd love to see this university create a 3D teaching environment where we can take people, fly them over to the valley, young, all the way from primary school, all the way through tertiary school. I can see this really happening.
and we've got all the people that we need, we've got all the toys that we need. I think we can do it. So if we want to keep going, please keep in touch with one another and just let's do it.
Thank you very much.